Grace and Bella were more than friends, they were inseparable. From childhood to adulthood, they shared everything: laughter, secrets, and dreams. They went to the same schools, attended the same fellowship, even wore matching clothes during events. People called them the twins who weren't born together. Grace was gentle, calm, and thoughtful, while Bella was bold, outspoken, and daring. Together, they complemented each other in a beautiful way. After graduation, they both served in different cities but stayed in touch. Grace often called Bella to share stories about her experiences, her faith, and most especially, a young man she had met, Daniel. Daniel was kind, driven, and deeply rooted in his values. The more Grace spoke about him, the more Bella grew curious. She was genuinely happy for her friend at first, but something inside her stirred, a quiet comparison, a tiny whisper of envy. Grace didn't know it, but every time she shared a romantic moment or kind word Daniel had said, Bella's heart shifted slightly. She began to wonder, what if I were the one Daniel met first? At first, she dismissed the thought. But with time, envy grew into quiet obsession. She started watching Grace more, her smiles, her softness, her faith, and began to feel that Daniel deserved someone more like her. What started as admiration slowly turned into competition. Bella didn't mean to cross any line, but envy has a way of blinding even the purest hearts. By the time Grace invited her home to meet Daniel, the seed had already been planted. The first time Bella met Daniel, she understood instantly why Grace loved him. He was gentle in speech, attentive in listening, and carried a calmness that drew people in. He welcomed Bella warmly, grateful for being introduced to Grace's sister. But as the evening went on, Bella noticed something. Daniel respected Grace, but his eyes occasionally flickered with curiosity when Bella spoke. That tiny flicker gave her power she didn't know she wanted. From that day, Bella began to intentionally stay in touch. She would message Daniel under the excuse of helping Grace plan surprises, or getting his opinion. Daniel saw it as friendship, Bella saw it as opportunity. Slowly, boundaries blurred. She would share personal stories, laugh with him late into the night, and talk about dreams. Grace noticed the closeness but trusted them both. Her heart was pure, she had no reason to fear. Over time, Daniel's responses to Grace became slower. Calls became shorter. Grace blamed distance, not knowing the real distance was emotional, not physical. Bella, on the other hand, was caught between guilt and desire. She knew she was walking a dangerous path, but she couldn't stop. The thrill of being desired, of feeling chosen, blinded her. It was during one of Daniel's low moments, when he argued with Grace, that Bella saw her chance. She comforted him, spoke softly, and one mistake led to another. What began as an emotional affair became physical. Bella thought it was love, Daniel thought it was confusion. But love built on betrayal never stands. Weeks later, Bella discovered she was pregnant. She froze. It wasn't planned, and it wasn't right. But fear pushed her toward control. She knew that once Grace found out, everything would be ruined, not just the friendship, but every memory they shared. So she decided to protect herself, even if it meant destroying everything else. Daniel was devastated when he heard the news. He didn't love Bella, at least not the way he loved Grace, but the pregnancy changed everything. Shame and responsibility forced his hand. He stopped seeing Grace completely, ignoring her calls. Grace cried for weeks, confused and heartbroken. She thought Daniel had found someone else, but she didn't know it was her best friend. When Bella told Grace the truth, it was already too late. The wedding was fixed. Grace stood there in silence, unable to cry. Her chest burned, her knees weakened. "You? Bella," she whispered, her voice trembling. But Bella couldn't meet her eyes. She justified her actions, saying, "It just happened." But Grace knew nothing just happens. Betrayal is always a choice. Their friendship ended that day. The bond they built for years shattered with one decision. Bella walked down the aisle, and Grace walked away, broken but breathing. Grace sank into depression. Days felt empty. She avoided everyone, including God. How could she pray when her prayers felt unheard? The men she prayed for, the friend she trusted, were both gone. Every memory was a wound. She deleted photos, threw away letters, and promised herself never to love again. But God, in His mercy, never leaves us buried in sorrow. A new job offer came in another city, a fresh start. Grace took it, though her heart was still raw. She joined a small community group, made new friends, and began journaling her pain. It was there she realized forgiveness wasn't about others, it was about her freedom. Every time she prayed, she whispered, "Lord, help me forgive." And slowly, her tears began to heal instead of hurt. Meanwhile, Bella lived in comfort but not peace. Daniel provided everything money could buy, but their home lacked warmth. He was distant, distracted, and cold. Whenever Bella tried to talk about their love, he grew silent. Guilt haunted her, she had won the battle but lost the war. Every night, she lay beside a man whose heart was somewhere else. Grace, on the other hand, began to rediscover herself. She volunteered, encouraged others, and even smiled again. The scars were still there, but they were no longer open wounds. She didn't know it yet, but God was preparing a man who would love her differently, not through excitement, but through peace. Bella thought marriage would bring her happiness. She believed once she became Daniel's wife, she would have everything Grace ever dreamed of. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, she discovered that a wedding ring doesn't guarantee peace. Daniel was present but distant. He provided, but love felt absent. Every smile from him seemed forced, and every silence between them grew louder than words. At first, Bella believed she had won. She wore her wedding ring proudly and told herself she had finally gotten what she deserved. The house was large, the baby healthy, and the husband devoted, at least that's what she told everyone. But when the lights went out at night and silence filled the room, something inside her began to stir, a hollow ache she couldn't name. Daniel was there, yet far away. He provided for her and smiled when others were watching, but his eyes rarely lingered on her. Every time she reached for his hand, he seemed distracted. She began to notice how often he withdrew into himself, lost in thoughts she couldn't enter. And in the middle of laughter, she would catch that distant look, the same look he once gave Grace. Bella tried harder. She cooked his favorite meals, dressed beautifully, tried to keep the house warm and welcoming. But love that is forced becomes exhausting. She would wake up every day pretending everything was perfect, but each night she cried quietly beside a man who no longer saw her. The child became her only source of comfort, yet even that love couldn't fill the emptiness. It was then she began to understand, peace cannot grow in a garden watered by betrayal. She had gained everything she wanted, but it came without joy. The envy that once pushed her had become the chain that bound her. The very thing she thought would bring her happiness now became her reminder that no stolen blessing ever truly brings peace. At night, Bella often lay awake beside her husband, wondering if he still thought of Grace. She would glance at him and see his eyes closed, but she could tell, he wasn't resting, he was retreating. The baby brought brief joy, but motherhood didn't fix the emptiness in her heart. She had what she wanted, yet it didn't satisfy her soul. The peace she imagined was nowhere to be found. Bella began to feel it too, the weight of her choices. She tried to cover her pain with wealth, clothes, and status, but none could soothe her spirit. The joy she took from Grace now turned to ashes. What once seemed like victory became a prison of regret. The same woman who once laughed the loudest now cried the hardest when no one was watching. Grace, on the other hand, walked through her wilderness. She cried through nights that seemed endless. But slowly, God began to rebuild her. One day at work, she met Stanley, calm, thoughtful, gentle. He didn't rush her healing, he waited for her to trust again. Unlike Daniel, Stanley didn't just love her beauty, he cherished her heart. Their friendship blossomed naturally. Stanley respected her story and never judged her pain. He reminded her that broken hearts can bloom again. He showed her what love looked like when it's patient, kind, and rooted in peace. Grace learned to laugh again. Her tears became prayers, and her prayers turned into strength. Years passed, and Stanley proposed. Grace, trembling, said yes, not because she had forgotten her past, but because she had grown beyond it. Her wedding was peaceful, intimate, full of joy. As she walked down the aisle, She felt something she hadn't in years: freedom. The kind of peace that comes when you finally let go. She didn't hate Bella anymore. The anger had burned out, replaced by calm surrender. Grace didn't need revenge, she had peace. She realized forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's wrong, it's about freeing yourself from it. Bella's marriage crumbled quietly. Daniel became distant, and love grew cold. The men who once chose her now avoided her gaze. They fought often, about little things that carried big meanings. The child grew up in a home filled with silence. One night, Daniel confessed. He told Bella he had never truly healed from what they did to Grace. He said he loved their child but resented the way things began. Bella froze. She wanted to scream, but guilt held her tongue. She saw in his eyes that their story had been built on another woman's tears, and such stories rarely last. She tried to make things right, but the damage was deep. Her beauty faded, her pride broke, and the peace she envied now lived far from her. She often found herself scrolling through old photos of her and Grace, wondering if betrayal was worth the price. Her home had walls, but no warmth. And though she had a husband and a child, loneliness became her closest friend. It was a Sunday afternoon when Grace ran into Bella at a children's outreach program. Their eyes met, one pair full of peace, the other heavy with regret. Bella wanted to hide, but Grace's gentle smile disarmed her. They spoke awkwardly at first, then slowly began to open up. Bella broke down in tears, confessing everything. She said, "Grace, I took what was yours, but it never became mine. I destroyed our friendship, and I destroyed myself." Grace wept too, not out of anger, but out of compassion. In that moment, Grace held her hand and whispered, "I forgave you long ago." Bella fell to her knees, sobbing, feeling something lift off her chest, the weight of years of guilt. Grace helped her up and hugged her. It was a moment heaven watched. Two broken hearts, mended by Grace. They didn't return to being best friends, but they walked away lighter. Grace went home smiling, Bella went home renewed. Forgiveness had done what revenge never could, it brought healing. Years later, Grace and Stanley celebrated their 10th anniversary with laughter and children running around. Peace filled their home like a sweet fragrance. Grace often told her story to young women, not to boast, but to teach, that when you wait on God, no one can take what is yours. Bella, now older, lived quietly with her son. Her marriage didn't survive, but her faith did. After Grace forgave her, she began rebuilding her life. She joined a support group for women healing from guilt and betrayal, helping others find peace too. One day, she wrote in her journal, "Peace is not in getting what you want, it's in being forgiven for what you did." She finally understood that the only way to heal is to face truth and receive mercy. And Grace, her heart became a testimony. She never expected that the friend who broke her would one day call her, "The one who taught me grace." Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it transformed it. Morals of the story. 1. Envy destroys before it ever satisfies. What you gain through jealousy will never bring peace, because a heart filled with comparison can never truly rest. 2. Timing is everything. Grace lost what she thought was her future, only to gain the destiny that was truly hers. When you wait on God, He replaces heartbreak with blessings that carry no sorrow. 3. Forgiveness is freedom. Grace didn't let bitterness define her, she let go and trusted God to fight for her. In the end, her peace became her victory. 4. Not all open doors are divine. Some paths lead quickly to success but end in quiet ruin. Learn to discern before you desire, not everything that shines is meant for you. 5. True love cannot be stolen. When something is built on lies, it will eventually crumble. What is yours will always find you, and when it does, it will come with peace, not pain.